Welcome to the latest episode of Star Cells and God. My name is Rana. I'm a biochemist and a Christian apologist, and I'm joined in studio today by Dr. Jim Painter, who is a nutrition scientist who is a professor at John Patrick University. And today we're going to be taking on the question, what can we do to promote gut health, and what on earth does that have to do with scientific apologetics? You don't want to miss it. Jim, welcome back to Star Cells and God. You've been on the show quite a few times, and these are some of the more popular episodes because you always give really good advice in terms of how we should eat and the science behind the foods that we eat and the foods that we shouldn't eat. So again, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Fuzz. I always like doing this because it's kind of free-flowing and it's not scripted. I don't have a PowerPoint behind me, and we're just talking. So it's fun. Yeah,
well, good. Well, today we're going to be talking about gut health and the role that bacteria and even yeast play in terms of promoting a healthy gut,
right,
and why that's important. But, this all is centered around the microbiome, and I'm sure you're going to unpack the whole idea of the microbiome for us in just a few minutes. But, to me, as a biochemist, one of the most remarkable things that I've seen in the last couple of decades has really been the discovery of the microbiome. Right now, we've always known that humans have had bacteria associated with them, but we now have come to understand that there's actually this symbiotic, mutualistic relationship between bacteria and humans, not only on terms of what the microorganisms found on the surface of our skin, but in our intestinal tract.
Right.
And in fact, just a fun fact, I think we have 10 times more bacteria that's part of our body than human cells, right?
Right. There seems to be more bacteria in our colon than make up our entire body.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing to me. I think that's true because I've read it now for so many years. It's kind of come down. It used to be 10 to 1 and a little bit less, and now it's just more. There's more in our bacteria and things in our colon than make up our whole body.
Yeah, that's just
amazing.
Yeah, that's absolutely remarkable. So we are bacterial ecosystems, but
we really are.
But we're discovering that the microbiome is actually playing a critical role in our health, and that we need to do things to foster them.
Right.
And so we're going to be talking about that and the science behind that. But this is a program where we look at the discoveries in science that provide evidence for the Christian faith. And so really, I'd like to spend just a few minutes before we get into the science just asking that so what question. What does this have to do with science and faith? And I thought, because you have a good sense of humor, I would regale you with my theology of hot dogs.
Okay.
Yeah, because everybody knows hot dogs are not necessarily healthy for you. But my thought is, just eat as many hot dogs as you want. You might die earlier, but you get to heaven sooner.
That's very true.
Right. So, and then if you just eat broccoli instead of hot dogs, you live longer. And then when you die, you realize I could have been to heaven sooner, and I could have had hot dogs.
Yes.
Now, there's a problem with that theology. So I want you to help me with that. What's wrong? And again, I'm being somewhat tongue-in-cheek here.
Yeah, I've heard that many times. You're trying to eat healthy, you're going to live longer, right? But then you get to heaven later. Well, yeah, but we're supposed to be here first. But isn't it better to get to heaven faster? Well, then you can go shoot people. Because someone said, a little baby just got killed. Oh, well, they went to heaven. And then they say, wait a minute, so we should kill people and get them to heaven faster? No, that's not what I said. That's what I said, but they are there now, and they are blessed. And so I don't have to worry about them. But yeah, that is a nice conundrum. I've run into that numerous times, not particularly with a hot dog, but with other things.
Yeah. Well, and of course the problem is that, first of all, in terms of living a healthy life,
right,
we recognize that, our bodies, first and foremost, are the temple for the Holy Spirit. So it's part of our act of worship, really, to treat our bodies well, recognizing that we're indwelt by the Holy Spirit.
Which is the most difficult concept in Christianity to me, that the one who created everything in the beginning, where does that being reside in me? Really? Yes. I mean, I can't really comprehend it with my brain, but I've experienced it. I see it. The Word says it's true, and I think it's true. He lives in us, which is the most amazing thing. If I just lived that way every day, all day long, knowing that the one who created everything is inside me, I mean, life would be wonderful every single day, every moment of every day, because it's good. Yeah.
So, we want to respect our bodies. And then, of course, our body is part of this incredibly elegant design that the Creator has created. And so we want to treat our bodies with, in a good way, right?
The one scripture that really bothers me, it says, if you destroy your body, God will destroy you. Whoa! Geez, that's important. Yeah, it is. It's important. I mean, the body, its body exercise is of little value compared to godliness. Well, that's true, compared to godliness. Yeah. But it's very important if you want to be on the planet, because as soon as you lose your body, you leave the planet. So you want to take care of the body to keep you on the planet, because as soon as it's gone, you're done. Yeah. And you're not here anymore. So I've heard people say that. It says bodily exercise of little value. Yeah, compared to what? Well, compared to godliness, it is. But if you want to stay here on the planet, it's very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and then, in addition to that, too, I think you might even argue, look, if our part of our mission for each of us is to love God and to serve God and to love others and serve others, if we really are not in the best physical shape that we could be in, we really can't be used by God in many instances, right?
That's just so true. I see so many believers, and they're just eating cakes and pies and cookies, which are fine with me, as long as it's not your main meal. And just the way that they take care of their bodies, I see Christians so many places are just so overweight, and they can't move around, and they're barely being able to walk, and they're on walkers when they're 42, and they can't move. That's just terrible that we don't keep our body in good enough shape to just move across the room. Yeah. But I see that all the time, and especially with young people. I see younger people that are getting overweight and are getting out of shape. They don't exercise. I remember when we were kids, we would every day get home from school, go out and play kickball or softball or baseball or something. And now they get home, sit down in front, and they have the phone. And their face is shoved into their phone. They do it for hours and hours and hours and hours. And they're just not getting exercise. So, it is. If we want to live a nice, healthy life and do what God has us to do, we've got to keep our body in good shape.
Yeah. And when we think about even like the microbiome, I mean, this is something that, obviously the Bible doesn't really address, right?
Not at all.
Right. But the fact that we discover the microbiome and its importance for health is really part of God's providence too, right? It's a gift that, science and the medical insights that we develop from science is really a gift from God.
It is. I learned a lot of things that were not correct in college in the 70s. And I had to change my mind and apologize to people. I told people, don't eat butter, eat margarine. And I'd go back to my dad. Dad, I'm so sorry. This has been killing you. Go back to the butter. Really? You told me? I know, I said. But from the very beginning, we've been saying fiber is important, and we did. I taught that in the 70s. But we had never heard the word microbiome at all. Nobody was thinking about that. You ate fiber to give you bulk so that muscle can move it through and keep that muscle in good shape. And so I taught that, for years. And then the microbiome only came up, the term microbiome came up probably 25 years ago. And people had talked about biomes in the earth and bacteria living together, but the human microbiome, it's just been in the last 25 years we've been talking about that. And now it's huge. People are really discovering the importance of it. Like you said, we are living in a symbiotic relationship with this millions and billions of bacteria in our colon. And if we don't have them and we don't take care of them, we're in trouble.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I think is interesting is that and this is connected to the idea, the microbiome, is that oftentimes people refer to the gut as the second brain. So unpack that a little bit for us, and how does the microbiome relate to that?
You know, that's probably one of the most important things I've studied in the last, 50 years. I knew about the vagus nerve from the beginning. It's a nerve that leaves the bottom of your head, doesn't go down your back, comes in through here, hits your tongue, lungs, heart, into your intestines. And I knew that. I thought it was the brain telling those organs what to do. It was very difficult for me when I realized that 90% of the information is going from the guts to the brain. Really? Yeah. And so when people say they're nervous, they're excited, they see something, somebody falls, they fall down, they hurt themselves, ooh, and you get this feeling in your gut. And so your mind can affect your body. But when I found out your body can affect your mind, that was new to me. I started teaching a class on nutrition and mental health about 5 years ago. And I thought I knew something. I knew very little. And I started studying about the microbiome. And I am convinced now that when people say, I'm just nervous, I don't know why I'm nervous, or I feel depressed, there's this thing just hanging over the top of me. Where does that come from? It has its inception in the microbiome. What are you talking about? Well, you know, we've got that nerve that goes right down in. It innervates the very lining of our colon. And so those cells that are right there touching the stuff in our colon have a direct line to the brain. And so what's going on there? If you have bacteria there that are producing toxic things that are hurting the cells in your colon, that goes right to the brain, you say, I feel kind of terrible. Well, what's going on in your microbiome? And the other side of it, when you have good microbes there, and generally the population that's in your colon is positive probiotic microbes, you're producing things like short-chain fatty acids that feed the colon. And so the colon is in great shape. It's sending a message to the brain, we're doing really good. And the idea that you can just feel, I feel a little depressed. Where's that coming from? What you ate yesterday. Really? Yes. Or I'm just nervous all the time. I'm just nervous. I don't know why. And well, what have you been eating? Ho-ho, Twinkies, you know. I've just been eating all these candies and sugars and things. Well, that's part of the problem. You're not giving the bugs that you need to make thrive in your colon healthy because of what you're eating. Yeah.
And that's absolutely remarkable, the idea that, you know, our gut is playing a role in our mental health. And a big, component of that is the flora of bacteria that's within our colon. That's mind blowing. And so for that reason alone, we want to pay attention to that. Now, there are these terms that I see thrown around that I just want to make sure that we're clear on. The terms probiotic, prebiotic, and symbiotic. What do those terms mean? Now, prebiotic here doesn't mean the same thing as it means if you're an Origin of Life researcher, when you're talking about the molecules that are on early Earth, right? But so what do those terms mean?
You know, it's almost more important not to take a probiotic. A probiotic is an actual bacteria, or in some cases a yeast, that you take that goes into your colon and gives you more of the beneficial bacteria and yeast from the pill. So a probiotic is probios. It is a positive organism you take into your body. Yeah. Now, the thing is if you don't have something there for it to eat, it dies. And so a prebiotic are the fibers that those probiotic yeast bacteria use to survive. And so really, you can buy a probiotic, and it can be fructooligosaccharides or galactooligosaccharides. And those are things that you can't digest, and you can't get anything from them, but the bacteria in your intestine love it. And the ones that really love it are the ones that we want to have more of. And so it's an incredible thing to me when I see that you take one probiotic or one prebiotic, and that one bacteria expands in your colon, but it brings with it a host of other ones that are all beneficial too. They come and go together. That's amazing to me. Yeah. So you don't have to take all of them. If the environment is conducive for one good bacteria, it works for all of them. Yeah. And it has to do with pH, the acidity that's in your colon, the nutrients being produced. when you have a beneficial bacteria, it's just producing things that are beneficial to other bacteria. And if you have something
So those bacteria are in a symbiotic relationship with one another,
That's
too.
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So someone says, I took this probiotic. It has 12 things in it. Well, okay. But did they really test it? Are they just battling each other and you're only getting up one anyway, you know? So, and some of them have. Some of them have tested it. We've tested this group, and they tend to work together. But that reminds me of kefir. Kefir is this amazing relationship with about 3-4 dozen different bacteria.
Now, that would be an example of a probiotic.
Of a probiotic,
Right.
yeah.
So it's a food that is rich in bacteria, or you can take a probiotic as a
Correct.
pill.
Yeah.
Right.
So probiotics are important. Prebiotics, or the fibers that feed them, are important too. Because, like I said, if you take a probiotic and you've got the wrong intestinal milieu there, it just doesn't grow. It just dies. So you have to give it the things it needs to survive. And so symbiotic, when you've got the probiotic and the prebiotic together, they symbiotic. They produce things that are beneficial for your body, for each other and for your body. So, yeah, it's an amazing, complex mess of biotic things. And when I was in school in 1974, I think, I read a study that they gave these people, 50 of them, with a primary diagnosis of constipation. And they gave them Lactobacillus acidophilus. Did we know that's what it was then? I'm not convinced that we did. Everything back then was Lactobacillus acidophilus. Fine, 1974. And they gave this to them. So they took that, put it in the milk, they cultured the milk. It was just this nasty, acidic milk. They gave it to them 2 times a day, and all 50 of them resolved the constipation. Really, that got me excited 25 years before the microbiome was spoken of, because we knew there were bacteria there. We didn't understand much about it, but just taking this one probiotic, and the term probiotic is newer than that. You know, I think it was Dinnan that in 2012 maybe that came up with the word, a probiotic. And so, yeah, we knew that things were there. We knew that it was important, but we had no idea that it was this colony of things that was working together for themselves and for us.
Yeah. And then a symbiotic is you're combining both of them.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So what would be an example of a symbiotic?
Well, you can take a probiotic pill,
Okay.
and they can wrap that thing in fructooligosaccharides, galactoligosaccharides, and you can take those two things together, and they function in a symbiotic way. And they produce things that are good for you and for themselves.
Okay, so then now that we've kind of got these terms identified, what are some of the benefits of promoting the appropriate microbiome in your gut?
You know, like I said, the one thing is with diarrhea, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, those things are right in the gut and it's not functioning well. So if you have a bunch of bacteria, yeast, fungus, all those things that are in there that are not probiotics, that are actually producing things that are deleterious for you, then the colon lining is getting bombarded with all that stuff. And so you get all these bad bacteria producing things that are harming the lining of your colon, and it stops working. It can even go into hyperdrive like, and you have diarrhea, or it can slow down saying, we're not moving anything. And so basically just the function of the colon, it's determined by the bacteria that are there and the prebiotics that are there. But it's much more than that now.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some of the foods that we can eat that would be really good prebiotics that would just cultivate the right environment for the microbes that we would consume as either a probiotic pill or through probiotic foods?
So you're talking about prebiotics, what foods are?
Yes, yeah.
So the things that are good for prebiotics are things we don't eat much. Jerusalem artichoke is one. It's full of FOS. It's got these things in there that we don't use, but the bacteria in our body need them. And so things like that, garlic is good, onions are good. A lot of the foods we don't eat a lot, asparagus, bananas have a lot of that in it too. So a lot of the vegetables that we don't normally eat are filled with these prebiotics. One time I got a big bag of prebiotic, it was a pound. I took a tablespoon, another tablespoon, put 2 tablespoons in my smoothie, blended it up, I drank it. in about 6 hours, my entire intestine was on explode. The bacteria are growing. I've got gas everywhere, I'm burping. And that lasted for about 12 hours. I thought, man, I almost killed myself because I put that in there, and all these bacteria that weren't growing, all of a sudden it gets slammed with all this prebiotic, and they just grew. And I thought, man, I had so much pain. My gut's hurting. I have gas. I thought, what did I do? So then I started taking a half a teaspoon. Okay, half a teaspoon was good. And that kind of built up my microbiome. And then I gradually built into taking more of it. But man, the first time I did it was horrible. I had a student. He was black. And he came to me the next day, and he was kind of ash or white. I said, what's the matter with you? He said, you almost killed me. Really, what'd I do? He said, I went home, and I tried to eat a box of All Brand. He said, I said, we're in a nursing home. The boxes are this big. You eat a box of All Brand, it's one bowl. He said, I had 5, 6 bowls. He said, my insides started hurting. I had gas and diarrhea all night. I couldn't sleep. I feel horrible. You almost killed me. I said, take it easy. You don't want to eat a whole box of All Brand. He ate half the box and almost killed him. Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea would be we want to start slow,
Yes,
but what about fruits and vegetables and nuts? Are those good sources, generally speaking?
Yeah.
So just the typical types of fruits and vegetables, because you talked about the specialty ones that really are ideal in terms of creating the right prebiotics for us or giving us the right prebiotics. But what about just grapes and apples and pears and things like that?
They all are great for different reasons. And so apples are full of pectin. It is a soluble fiber, and then it's used by bacteria. I mean, bananas also have a lot of fiber in them, but just anything that is crunchy. So the crunch of a celery stick that you bite or a carrot stick or an apple, that is this cellulose, it's sugars that are instead of put together with an alpha bond, it's a beta bond. And our body can't digest it. But it's fiber, and the bacteria can. Yeah. And so it gets down there. So anything that's a fruit or a vegetable, even if it's cooked, you go, well, that's mushy. It's lost all its fiber. It has not. It still has the fiber in there, And so you eat something like a canned fruit, canned vegetables, they're mushy. They still have the fiber in there. So eat them. And I think if people just ate enough fruits and vegetables every day, we could not only cure and take care of constipation, diarrhea, irritable bowel syndrome, but most other conditions also have a part of their problem in the gut.
Yeah. Well, when I was reading this review article that you recommend as the reference for our discussion, it's remarkable the list of conditions that are associated with an imbalanced microbiome and, can be mitigated by having a healthy, like cancer, right? Obesity, GI tract health, which is what you're talking about, diabetes, issues with your central nervous system,
right?
UTIs, let's see, respiratory diseases, cardiovascular diseases, inflammation, angiogenesis. I mean, it's just like, that's remarkable. It's just like all of these common ailments that are really quite pervasive in our culture have an association or a negative association with an imbalance in the microbiome.
It really is true. It's amazing how much the gut health has to do with everything else. Because if you've got bad microbiome, it's producing things that harm the lining of the intestine. You get inflammation. So inflammation anywhere in our body that's chronic, that's there all the time, is a problem. And so that can cause other things. Like you think about psoriasis. It's a skin condition. Where did it start? In your gut. Really? How is that even possible? Well, it does. It has when your gut is inflamed and it's not absorbing things the way it should, it's absorbing these toxic things that it shouldn't be absorbing, it shows up as psoriasis on your skin. Really? Yes. And it's a direct connection. If you want to get rid of some skin conditions, you can just change what you're eating, improve the function of your colon and your intestines, and it'll go away. It's just amazing. Now, there's pills you can take to do other things. You can just take a pill to just squelch the reaction that's happening. And that squelches everything. Then your whole body is not working properly to protect you from disease because you've knocked it all down. And that's a problem. They'll take a pill that reduces the inflammation and calms down your system, and it takes care of that, but then it also, you get some kind of a disease like, oh man, I died from that. I should have not done that. I should have not tried to knock that thing back, but fix it by fixing the problem.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're bringing up a good point, which is, when it comes to modern medicine, every drug has a side effect. And so what you're doing when you're taking drugs is you're hoping that the side effects are minimal enough that the drug is actually improving the quality of your life by treating the symptoms or maybe addressing the condition. But there are going to be side effects. So it's balance. It's a trade-off between, are the side effects worse or manageable relative to the medicine you're taking? But if you can actually do something with your diet that prevents the issue from beginning to begin with, or mitigates it.
Right.
I mean, surely there's going to be some genetic components to these diseases. So it doesn't mean that you eat right and you're not going to get these conditions, but you're at least not conspiring with other factors that are causing that disease.
Yeah, I had a lady at church, and she'd bump into stuff. She's just black and blue. Her arms are just black and blue. I said, what's the matter? Well, I'm taking budesonide. Oh, for how long? 7 years. 7 years? I went to the doctor once many years ago, and I said I was having this problem. They did a test, and I said, okay, you've got this. You need to take budesonide. I looked up budesonide. It works 80% of the time. And then within a couple of months, it fails 80% of the time. That's like a 10% rate. Yeah. She said, that's the best we have. That's the best we have. That's not good enough. And so I worked at actually fixing my microbiome and got rid of the problem altogether. And there are no side effects, like, have turned black and blue all over because of the budesonide. And so these steroid hormones do amazing, but they can also kill you. They're doing something that's helping you with this condition, and it does. She said, if I don't take it, I just have diarrhea 15 times a day, and my life is not worth anything. I get it. So she takes it and knocks it down, and she can live better. All right. But really the best thing to do is fix what's the problem. There's something wrong in your microbiome that's causing this inflammation in your colon and in your intestines, and you need to figure out what that is and fix it. It's not always easy. Well, which bacteria should I take? Once in a while there is a certain probiotic that fixes this. There is. But that's generally not the way it is. It generally is you'd have to do some things to fix the whole what's going on in your microbiome, and it can be a variety of things.
Yeah.
You got to try sometime. Try this, try that, keep going, add this to it, and keep going until you find out what it is that's causing your intestinal problem.
Right. But I mean, at the end of the day, what I think I hear you saying is, you can take, probiotic tablets. Mm-hmm. There are a number of foods that are well-known probiotics, yogurt, kefir, things like that, sauerkraut. You can eat, fruits and vegetables, making sure that you're getting a good source of fiber, both insoluble and soluble fiber, right? And maybe, cut out other things that are, that are processed foods. Right. And just that alone seems like it could go a long way towards overall improving a person's health overall. Is that?
That's very true. You said something. You said soluble and insoluble fiber. There's There's more than two kinds. There's a dozen. But the two general categories are insoluble. What's insoluble fiber? It doesn't solubilize in water. So you take a bowl of all bran, you pour milk on it, wait 24 hours, eat it, it's still dry. It didn't. Where you take Metamucil, it's dry and powdery. You add liquid to it. Within 2 minutes, it's turned into a solid gel. So those are two kinds of fiber, and they do different things. And so the cellulose, the insoluble fiber, adds bulk. And so what bulk does is it gives your intestinal muscles something to push through. If you just eat white flour all the time and you're not getting enough fiber, there's not enough there to allow your colon to push it through. Mm-hmm. And so insoluble fiber does that. Soluble fiber more tends to feed the good bacteria. And so when you were saying earlier, which ones? Should I eat grapes or apples or pears or whatever? Eat them all. Eat some of all of that, and not just the fiber, but just the colors too. The polyphenolic compounds that are in fruits and vegetables, the color compounds, actually control part of what our entire genetic structure decides to function or not function. It turns it on, it turns it off. And so you can say, genetically, I've got this. Yeah, but what you eat determines what part of that genetic sequence you have is actually expressed. And so fiber, all these good things that you get in fruits and vegetables, you also get all these color compounds, these phenolic compounds, that are just amazing at turning on and turning off parts of our genetic code, causing things to happen in our body.
Yeah, and so sometimes I've heard them called phytochemicals or micronutrients.
Yeah.
Is that another name for them? Right, yeah. So, as I've heard you say before, the best advice that you can give people is just eat real food, right? Just eat whole food, real food, right?
And people get mad at me. They say, what should I eat? And I said, I'm going to tell you right now, and this is the answer. This is your answer. Eat whole foods. Okay, Doc, I get that, but what am I supposed to eat? You didn't hear me. Eat whole. Should I be vegan or should I be paleo or should I be a carnivore? Well, you're not listening. Eat whole foods. Well, which one should I eat? Eat if it's something that God made in the beginning. It's amazing how our body is so fearfully and wonderfully made. We can survive on anything that's a whole food, and I've seen people do it. I've talked to a kid 2 nights ago, and he's a carnivore. Hadn't eaten a single vegetable in 4 years. How you doing? I'm doing really good. Okay, I'm not sure if that's the best diet, and see how you do in 30 years. But then I was with this guy, I was giving a talk. He said, I eat like our ancestors, the great apes. What do you eat? You eat mono. What's that mean? They climb the tree and eat bananas and come down to have sex. And then for lunch, they climb the tree and eat a bunch of nuts, come down and have sex. The next time, they climb a tree and they eat all avocados, they come down. And I said, you eat that way? He has 5 bananas for breakfast. He has a bowl of nuts for lunch, and he has 5 avocados for dinner. And he was pretty healthy. He'd been doing that for years. Okay, our bodies, if you give it whole food, it's not chips and cookies and crackers, our body can use that, and it can function really well just by eating whole foods.
Yeah. So, on one hand, the science behind this is increasingly becoming robust. There's an element of complexity to it, which speaks of the design in the elegance of our bodies, it points to the handiwork of a creator. But in terms of what we need to do to right the ship, it's not that complicated, really, at the end of the day, right?
No, it isn't. People don't want to. I've had so many friends of mine that are doctors, primary care physicians, and talking about functional foods and actually trying to find the functional thing that's wrong in the person and fix it. And they said, yeah, Jim, I get that. I understand it. When they come to me, I say, okay, now you're going to change what you eat for breakfast. You're going to change what you eat for lunch. You're going to exercise every day. You're not going to sit around and say, Doc, can't you just give me a pill? Can't you just give me a pill? What? I can't tell you how many physicians have told me that. People just want a pill. They don't want you to mess with their lifestyle. And that's true. I mean, to get the real answer, though, we have to change how we're living and what we're doing. Yeah.
Well, and I would be just curious your thoughts. These GLP-1 receptor agonists like Ozempic and all the other different brands that are now being advertised very heavily on TV. I mean, in some respects, these are miracle drugs, particularly for people with diabetes, suffering from, severe obesity, things like that, where people just need to get the weight off. But, as I understand it, as soon as you stop taking those drugs, you gain the weight back, or the problems with diabetes return very quickly. So it's something that you need to be prepared to do for your life. But it's very easy because you don't have to change anything.
Nothing. You just take the pill. I'm done. That's good.
Yeah. And like my mom's husband is somebody that took, these GLP-1 receptor agonists. And, it was remarkable to see literally every time you'd go to visit him every couple of weeks, it's like, the incredible disappearing man, right? But he didn't change his life. I mean, he still ate, the same things that he was eating. So that's very tempting, right?
Yep.
To think that this is the solution to the problem,
Right.
but and there's a lot of other benefits that we're beginning to discover, but there's some side effects too. And so is that really the answer? I think it's the answer for somebody that really is in bad shape.
Yep.
But I don't think it's the answer for somebody that's reasonably healthy, right?
It's just very true. Whatever you do has to be maintained or you lose the benefit with anything. And with GLP-1, it's amazing. I've asked so many people that are on it, what happens? Do you try and eat less? No. I just feel full sooner. I feel full longer. I don't have a desire to eat as much. And they do that. They actually can mess around with the hormones like ghrelin and leptin that determine, am I full or am I not full? Do I need to eat more or don't I? And it's just incredible. It is an amazing, it's like steroids. You give a steroid, whoop, and it fixes something instantaneously. I had this pain in my back. He gave me a shot and the pain goes away. Well, in 3 months, it comes back. You got to have another one. And then, if we did too many of these, your bones are going to rot away and you're going to fall apart and you're going to be dust. Oh, okay, well, I don't want that. So, GLP-1 drugs are really new. They've only been out for a couple of years now, and people really taking them to do everything. I want to cut down, eat less. I want to not feel hungry. I want to lose weight. I want my blood sugar to go down. It does that. But, the long-term side effects, I think we have no idea what's going to happen with these things in 10 years. Yeah. Can you take it for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years? Yeah. I mean, people take insulin now for the rest of their life. And they have to because you're not making insulin. You got to take it. All right. Now, what's going to happen with these GLP-1 agonists? And I don't know. I don't know. Your point is well taken. Fasting is not a good way to lose weight. Why? Because you didn't change the way you're eating. So as soon as you stop fasting, you start eating food, all of a sudden, you just explode. I've seen so many people on a Atkins keto diet. Have you been on? Yes. How did it work? I lost 50 pounds. And then what? I gained 70 pounds. Really? I've heard that story hundreds of times. I don't know too many people that stay on it forever. If you go on a ketogenic diet and stay on it, it will keep working. But then I think of that, is that the best diet to be on for 30 years? That I don't know. I don't know how long you can take it and keep trusting the benefits before something else doesn't happen. And I don't know.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's simple. Eat real food.
Right.
Right. If you just change your lifestyle. Now, with respect to the American diet, processed foods are just everywhere, and it's very hard at times really not to eat them. You almost have to work at it. When you go to a grocery store, it's remarkable. You walk up and down aisles, and most of the aisles are processed food.
Right.
So, so what are examples of processed food, and are some processed foods worse than others? What is it that we should try to avoid as much as possible, and what processed foods are okay to consume?
Right. So we had a RTB gala, and they had cake. Did you eat the cake at that meal?
I didn't, actually.
You didn't?
No.
Good for you, I did. I ate it. And I had 2 pieces of bread, I had potatoes, I had more carbohydrates at that meal than I have had at a single meal in 5 years. Okay, so back to your question, though. Are there some better than others? Yeah, because processing is not bad. Ultra-high processing is bad. Okay. So you take a vegetable and you can it, that's processed. It lasts for years on the shelf. Is that still good? Yeah, it's still got, 90% or more of the nutrients still there. And if you freeze it, it's even better. It keeps 95%. What's a problem is when you process something, you take away something. So when you take a whole grain of wheat and you take off the bran and you pull out the germ and all you got is the endosperm, the white pulp, you've lost 60 to 80% of the nutrients. That's the problem when we highly process things. It can be wheat, it can be fruits and vegetables. You start cutting things off and preparing them ahead of time, then they sit on the shelf or in the freezer for a long period of time. You do lose nutrients. So So even if you take those types of foods and you fortify them, right, that maybe improves the situation, but you still have a fundamental problem. Right, because you can fortify grains. So we have B1, B2, niacin, iron, and now folate. We have to, when you have it, a grain, it's almost always added back. Yeah, but there's another 20 things we took out, and those didn't get added back. Now, they're not as important maybe as those 5, but they're still very important. And so adding things back is not the answer. It helps. Yeah. Out in London, I talked to a lady. She has a company called SugarWise, and I said this. She said, "What are you talking about? I eat these processed foods all the time. They're great." What? And she's eating, I eat protein powder. That's how they find. Yeah, it is. But they took the bad stuff out and they left in the stuff that you're supposed to have. Okay. But then I have this vitamin thing. It's highly, well, okay, that's fine too. And so she was thinking about they're taking out stuff that you don't want, and she was just eating the things she wanted. Okay. Most people don't do that. 99% of the population eats flour, that the good stuff is gone, and you have the pulp left. That's all you have. And so that's what happens with most of processing. So what you're doing, fine. They're highly processing the stuff you don't want out, and they're keeping the stuff you want. But that is not the norm. That is not normally what happens. And so when you look at processing, it's, did you lose anything during this process? When you dry something like a grape, or you have herbs and spices, you dry them, you lose nothing. I mean, you take the water out, and it stabilizes, and it can list on the shelf for 10 years, and it maintains its nutrients. It's when you do something like that with grains, with corn or with wheat or with a grain, and you start pecking it apart, and you lose things, that's the part that's a problem, because you're not getting the whole food.
Right. Yeah. So we should really avoid foods that are made with white flour, things like that. Right. Table sugar, things like that.
It's very true. And so the amount of sugar that we consume, you went back 100 years, it was minuscule amounts. We just didn't consume much. And then through the last part of the last 100 years, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, we kept taking out whole grains and putting in white flour and sugar. And sugar just went double, triple, quadruple, just kept expanding till we're eating so much sugar. So when you talk about a highly refined anything, sugar's right there at the top. It's the worst. I mean, if you take cane and you eat it, you can just eat it. Yeah. It's full of fiber. You can't hardly chew it up. I've chewed on a cane of sugar cane. You just chew on it. It's a little bit sweet, so you keep trying to chew it, but it's full of fiber. It's full of other things, too. It's when you juice it and all that stuff's gone and you just have the sugar, it's highly refined and you've lost all the good stuff. Yeah. So, think about what you're talking about is refined. And so all the oils on the shelf, you see them, whether they're soybean oil or corn or safflower, sunflower, whatever they are, those things are really not good because they are pro-inflammatory and you've lost all the good stuff. Some of them, like you can get extra virgin, cold-pressed canola oil. Well, not canola so much, but olive oil and coconut oil. So you can get those. They're cold-pressed. They don't get hot. Okay, that's good. And they keep all of the phytonutrients that are there are in it. Oh, that's good. Because you used to get bleached, deodorized coconut oil. Okay. Well, you've taken all the stuff and you bleached it, and then you eat it, and it's lost everything but the oil. You just have the oil. Well, bummer. That's the highly refined stuff that we don't want, whether it's grains or whether it's oils.
Yeah. So, because the idea of processed foods is to some degree really important in terms of, are we going to be able to feed the world, right? We've got 8.2 billion people living on the planet, and not everybody's going to have ready access to whole foods. So you're going to have to process food. It reduces food waste. It allows for storage and more equitable distribution. But so your issue isn't really with processed foods. No. It's really with the ultra-processed foods. And now, in terms of bread, what kind of bread should people eat then? Obviously white bread, probably whole wheat bread isn't the best either. It isn't. It's white bread that just looks brown to me.
And generally it is. Everything that you eat in the United States on the food label, it has to have what's in there the most first. So when you read it, this is brown bread. You look at it, and the first is white flour, and then salt, water, and whole grain flour. Well, bummer. It's a little bit dark, but they darkened it with something else, and it wasn't the whole grain. And so you really can look at the label and see what's most in there. Right. And almost every bread, you look down the bread aisle, and I would say 95% of it plus shouldn't be consumed. There are some loaves of 100% whole wheat. Okay, that's whole grain. That's fine. But it goes to everything else, too. When you're having corn chips, corn flour, or if you're having oats and oatmeal and whole oats, try to eat the whole thing and not just the highly refined part that's just the white pulp without the fiber and the phytonutrients. And so, yeah, bread in general. I mean, there's a guy, Dr. Perlmutter, that wrote a book on not eating grains at all, at all. He doesn't have any. His dad had Alzheimer's, and he's a physician. I think I'm not sure he's a psychiatrist or not, but he then says that he's convinced that his dad, in the way he ate, that even whole grains, we can get too many of them. Yeah. We just don't need that much starch in our diet. Eat things that are not. Eat non-starchy vegetables, the green beans, the lettuce, the kale, all those things. You can just eat all what you want. But it's when you get to a potato, boy, they're really good potatoes. I just love potatoes. Mashed potatoes with some garlic, oh yeah, it tastes really good. And those are the things that are the problems. Yeah. They're highly refined. Like you take a potato and you cook it and eat it, and it has this much nutrient. And then you peel it off and you get rid of the skin, and then, it's lost a whole bunch. And then you cook it, you dry it, you powder it, you put it in a box, you just add water to it, it's lost even more. So you get this easy stuff. It's so easy. I just add water and you got it. Yeah, but you've lost 90% of the stuff. It's not in there anymore.
Yeah. So eating like a baked potato is probably perfectly fine. Yeah. But or even a mashed potato where you're mashing it with the skin.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah.
So it is. It's not that complicated, really. And where do we get most of our sugar from? What we drink. You go into the store, you got an entire row of stuff you shouldn't put in your body. Or if you do, take it easy with it, because it's all sugary sodas or things that are teas and special drinks that are full of sugar. And that's where we're getting the greatest percentage of the sugar in our diet comes from sweetened beverages. Man, some people have tried to attack that. There was a mayor in New York City a few years ago that passed a law on how much you can only have a soda of 16 ounces. What? And that just got shot down very quickly. It didn't last very long. Yeah. And the idea he wanted to do is get people to eat less sugar by cutting out the sugar-sweetened beverages. Yeah. That's a key. That's a good one right there. Don't get the sweetened, sugary Cokes and sodas and things.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jim, I appreciate the conversation here. We drifted away from the microbiome
a little bit,
but on the other hand, when you eat ultra-processed food, that doesn't do anything for the microbiome, right?
No. It doesn't have any of the things it needs to grow. And so all the things, before 1975, we were just taking fiber out of everything all the way through the last part, the first part of the last century. And we don't need it. You don't need it. Why have it? So we took it out of everything. And then Dr. Burkett went to Africa, and he was from England, and he said, man, these people don't have heart disease or cancer or digestive problems and with just constipation and diarrhea. They don't have any of that stuff. Why? He figured it was the fiber. So he came back and wrote a paper, 1971, on the importance of fiber, and it just flipped it. Yeah. I mean, Kellogg's came up with their all-brand cereal a couple of years later, and then we've got all kinds of things we can say about it, that it's heart healthy, that it does good for a variety of things, and we started putting it back in, but we still have all of this highly refined white bread, white flour that we're eating.
Yeah. So, I appreciate the practical advice here, and that it is tightly linked to really robust and increasingly robust science in terms of, really understanding what we can do to promote our gut health actually has wide-ranging implications for our health. And again, the reason we're talking about this is because from a Christian perspective, we just want to recognize that our bodies are these incredibly elegantly designed systems that God designed in such a way to work with the world that He's created. And when we start tinkering with that world, oftentimes what we do is never better than what God has intended for us. in terms of at least what we eat, right?
That is very true. And you think about it, when humanity starts doing something to a food, it's to make it look better, taste better, last longer in a certain situation. And so rarely has the nutritional quality been considered.
Yeah.
And we just butchered it over the last few decades. And we're starting to get out of it. Hopefully we'll change.
Yeah. And then, to me, I think what maybe is the most convicting is this idea that, if my body truly is the temple for the Holy Spirit, I really need to respect it and do what I can, to treat it well. And, that I can't really be used well by God if I'm not in the best possible shape that I could be in. So
that's just very true. I think that's the most important reason we should eat well. Because each one of us, if we're on the planet, we have a purpose. And we're different. What I think is the most important, you don't. And, I talk about fasting. It's the most important. Well, I don't care about that. People don't care. They want to talk about something else. And so we each have a certain specific purpose that we were designed to do, and we can't do it if we're not in good shape.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I really very much appreciate you taking the time to be with us and your valuable insight. And so hopefully this episode inspires people to realize, that nutrition is very much part of a worshipful response to God, and that it's part of our devotion.
It is.
In service to God. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Star Cells and God. We'd really love to hear your comments and your thoughts. Please join into the discussion in the comments section below. Make sure that you subscribe so that you are alerted when new episodes of Star Cells and God drops, which is every Wednesday. Make sure that you share this video with a friend, that you like this video, and remember that the more we know about science, the more that we have reasons to believe.